Ellsworth University's School of Computer Science was an ecosystem where intellect was currency and pressure was the atmosphere. From the outside, the granite buildings whispered of prestige. Inside, the air crackled with silent, relentless competition. The hallways were soundtracked by the rapid-fire clicks of keyboards, the low murmurs of strategic alliances, and the frustrated sighs of students battling insurmountable logic gates. At the absolute apex of this world stood the ACM Fellowship. This prize was more than a scholarship. It was a guaranteed fast-tracked entry into the world's most elite PhD programs or a C-suite position at any global tech firm. It was the definitive stamp of genius. Winning the ACM was not just about grading, it was about dominance. Amy Chen, was the quiet force in this landscape. Unassuming, almost invisible in her perpetually oversized hoodies, Amy was an anomaly. She possessed a mind that found profound comfort in the deterministic world of mathematics. For Amy, logic was safety. If the input was correct, the output must be correct. This was her core operating principle, one that applied equally to a complex algorithm and the chaotic theater of human interaction. Amy's parents, first-generation immigrants who ran a small electronics repair shop, had unwittingly instilled this philosophy. Amy spent her childhood surrounded by broken radios and disassembled circuit boards, learning that every failure had a traceable cause, and every solution required precision and patience. There was no room for guesswork or ego in the repair shop, only the cold, hard facts of the circuit board. This early training shaped her resilience. In high school, Amy's quiet brilliance made her a target. During a regional robotics competition, a jealous classmate had sabotaged her primary drive. The immediate humiliation was devastating, but Amy's reaction was unique. She didn't scream or cry. She calmly executed a deep forensic audit on the damaged components, tracing the sabotage back to the exact code insertion point. She didn't seek punishment for the culprit. She sought mastery over the flaw. From that moment, she learned that anger was fleeting, but forensic knowledge was permanent. This lesson was etched onto her soul. The golden variable, Julian Vance. Amy's primary constant antagonist at Ellsworth was Julian Vance. Julian was the quintessential golden boy, handsome, effortlessly charismatic, and the heir apparent to a sprawling venture capital firm. He was the master of image over substance. Julian's genius lay not in pure computation, but in social engineering and political leverage. Julian understood that in the corporate academic world, perception mattered more than the actual code. He cultivated an aura of the brilliant executive prodigy, subtly weaving narratives that undermined his rivals. For months, his attacks on Amy had been psychological, not technical. He would use his influence to ensure Amy's paper was assigned to the most skeptical peer reviewer, or casually suggest to professors that Amy's late-night dedication was due to hyper-focus, implying a lack of his own natural executive intellect. Amy, absorbed in the binary beauty of her code, largely ignored the noise, viewing Julian as an extraneous variable. However, she had one professional connection she trusted: Marcos Petrova, a senior PhD candidate and lab assistant who held critical access to departmental servers. Amy, desperate for an objective technical review of her work, had shown Marcos the preliminary architecture of her masterpiece, Project Cassandra. The decisive battle for the ACM Fellowship centered on the final project for advanced predictive analytics, a career-defining 40% of the grade. The task was to build a sophisticated financial prediction model. Amy poured her entire existence into her project, the Cassandra Protocol. It was a revolutionary fusion of predictive AI, utilizing multi-layered neural networks to analyze not just financial trends, but also vast streams of geopolitical data and social media sentiment. A model designed to anticipate global market volatility days, even weeks before traditional metrics blinked. Julian, meanwhile, focused entirely on the politics of the win. His project, Ethersight, was rumored to be heavily outsourced but visually stunning. He needed Amy annihilated because her Cassandra protocol was undeniably superior. Julian used his father's significant donor influence to secure temporary high-level administrative access to the departmental presentation network. a system controlled by the unwitting or complicit Marcos Petrova. Julian didn't just plan to win, he planned to execute a digital character assassination that would ruin Amy's future, ensuring his path to the ACM was completely cleared. The zero-sum game, the descent, the public betrayal, a silent attack. The day of the presentation, the tension in the lecture hall was thick enough to cut with a bread knife. Amy was nervous, but her confidence rested in the immutability of her code. Julian, positioned 3 rows back, watched with the calm intensity of a predator. Amy plugged her secure drive into the presentation laptop. Her model compiled flawlessly. The opening screen of the Cassandra Protocol, a sleek, elegant interface, appeared on the massive projector screen. The glitch. Before the applause could even begin, Amy noticed it. A micro flicker on the projector, a tiny digital ghost on the screen's periphery, a sign of a network script running in the background. Her breath hitched. Input, unexpected code execution. Output, system vulnerability. She began typing a diagnostic command, a desperate attempt to debug the flaw live, but the script was faster. The visualization charts shattered. In their place, a large, crudely formatted chat log replaced the elegant data points, scrolling beneath her name in a permanent, malicious banner. Tutorbot IP 192.168.1.1: your linear algebra functions are failing. This model is collapsing. Amy 2, PLZ. I don't care about the math. Julian is going to win. I need the metrics to stop him. I'll pay anything to pass. Tutorbot. IP 192.168.1.1. This is academic fraud. You are desperate. Amy 2. It's not fraud if you don't get caught. I need the fellowship. The room plunged into chaos, gasps, then snickers, then the heavy judgmental silence of the corporate recruiters. Amy stood frozen, watching the scrolling log of fabricated shame. She could trace the execution path in her mind. Julian had exploited the network access provided by Marcos, injected a self-deleting JavaScript payload designed to be triggered by the departmental presentation hardware, and broadcasted a forged log designed to hit her hardest, at her core professional integrity. It's a fake! It's an IP spoof! Amy stammered, pointing frantically at the screen. That IP address is registered to a temporary guest account. It's a plant. But Julian's narrative was too strong. Dr. Elias, Amy's mentor, stared at the public display of weakness, his face a mask of profound disappointment. Miss Chen, your presentation is over. Disconnect. Immediately report to the dean. We have overwhelming digital evidence of academic solicitation. The collapse and the institutional wall. The university's ethics committee, heavily populated by Julian's father's alma mater peers, moved with chilling speed. Amy's project was forfeited. Her ACM Fellowship application was stamped indefinite hold. Her summer internship was revoked. The technical genius of the Cassandra Protocol was entirely buried beneath the narrative of the desperate cheater. The truth that Amy was innocent mattered less than the perception of her guilt. She was exiled, her brilliant mind shackled by a political lie she couldn't erase, because the evidence, Julian's malicious script, had already completed its core function: self-deletion. In her cold, silent apartment, the shame was overwhelming. But then, the fire of logic ignited. Julian had used chaos, human emotion, political maneuvering, to destroy her deterministic world. Her counterattack could not rely on chaotic human elements like appeal boards or lawyers. It had to be a systemic correction, delivered by a force Julian could not bribe, charm, or delete. Pure, irrefutable data. She realized Julian had played her ultimate card, the zero-sum game. Amy's absolute failure was necessary for Julian's absolute success. He tried to delete my identity, she whispered, looking at her blacklisted laptop. But every action leaves a forensic trace. He forgot the core law of programming. The system always logs a transaction. The crucible of exile, the dark turn, the Marcos betrayal. Amy's first move was to try and reach Marcos Petrova. She needed the lab assistant to access the network server logs and prove the IP spoofing. Marcos was the key. Amy waited for him outside the department late one night. Marcos looked drawn, pale and terrified. "Amy, don't talk to me," he mumbled, looking nervously over his shoulder. Marcos, Julian framed me. He used an admin key that only you or the department head has. I need the traffic logs for that hour. Please, you know I'm innocent. Marcos flinched, his composure cracking. I can't. Amy, you don't understand the pressure. Julian, he found out about my student loan debt. He didn't just ask for my key, he bought my complicity. He paid off my entire debt. I gave him the admin credentials. I am ruined, Amy. If I help you, I lose everything. Maybe even face prison time for network fraud. He has me locked in. I am his insurance policy. The final piece of the betrayal fell into place. Julian had not merely been cunning, he was financially predatory. He didn't just need access, he needed a compromised asset. A willing spy with no moral or legal recourse. Amy's trusted connection had become Julian's indispensable tool. Amy turned away, her heart cold. She was truly alone. The system was more compromised than she ever imagined. Her revenge could not just target Julian, it had to target the systemic corruption he embodied. The search for Zeus. Amy now focused on the single biggest hole in Julian's life, his ACM capstone project, Synapse AI. The sheer complexity of the large language model framework was beyond Julian's known skill set. It was the centerpiece of his entire fraud. She spent weeks immersed in dark web coding forums, cryptocurrency transaction sites, and obscure digital asset marketplaces. Julian was paranoid about his professional identity, but she knew his hubris, his need to feel superior, would lead him to communicate directly with his supplier, even briefly. Her relentless forensic analysis finally yielded a breakthrough. She found a fragmented, encrypted communication trail leading to a highly secure, private digital asset locker, the user's tag, Zeus. Amy realized her real target wasn't Julian, it was Zeus, the ghost coder who held the financial keys and the technical blueprints to Julian's lie. Breaking Zeus's security was exponentially harder than breaking Ellsworth's firewalls. This was high-level digital espionage. For 3 weeks, Amy battled Zeus's layered defenses, a thrilling, silent war fought entirely through code. She used protocol analysis, brute force sequencing, and finally, a subtle timing attack that exploited a micro-latency in Zeus's server refresh cycle. It was a game of cat and mouse that pushed her intellect to its breaking point. The moment the final encryption layer dissolved, Amy gained access to Zeus's historical payment logs. There it was, the definitive wire transfer from Vance Holdings routed through offshore shell accounts amounting to $90,000. The memo, Project Titan Core Delivery. She secured the evidence, transaction receipts, the original codebase metadata, and Zeus's internal communications with Julian. The ACM capstone was entirely a purchased product. The Cerberus protocol, building the perfect trap. With the evidence in hand, Amy moved from defense to lethal offense. She designed her counter module, Cerberus, a 3-headed digital watchdog engineered not merely to expose the truth, but to make the truth unavoidable and legally actionable. 1. The Siphon module contained the Trojan payload, designed to infiltrate Julian's personal laptop and capture his current, highly incriminating private chat logs, and the self-deleting code Julian used to frame her. 2. The Chronos lock, immutability. This module's sole function was to use an external decentralized blockchain timestamp to verify the integrity and exact moment of data capture. This made the evidence legally irrefutable in any court. 3. The Triple Broadcast Protocol, the execution. The final payload, designed to simultaneously publish the financial, academic, and social evidence across 3 vectors at the moment of Julian's perceived triumph. Amy needed one final critical piece of intelligence, Julian's private social login credentials, to access the final humiliating chat messages he had sent after her disgrace. She found them hidden in an encrypted local browser cache. Julian had been too arrogant to clear his history, trusting his custom OS security. Amy had everything. Now she just needed 85 seconds of physical access, the infiltration and the execution. The 85-second action sequence. The ACM Fellowship Gala was 1 week away. Amy chose a Tuesday morning, 11 a.m., Julian's espresso run. Amy dressed in the uniform of invisibility, a janitor's jacket, oversized glasses, and a utility belt. She pushed a cleaning cart, which contained a toolkit, her customized USB boot drive, and a small, powerful Bluetooth spoofing device. At 11 a.m., Julian locked his secure study lounge, relying on the door's retina scanner and his custom Bluetooth key dongle, and headed to the department cafe. T-minus 85 seconds. Amy reached the door. The retina scanner was useless, but she activated the Bluetooth spoofer. The device flooded the air with Julian's dongle's unique pairing signal, overwhelming the laptop and forcing it into a temporary safe state, which temporarily disabled the biometric lock override. Click. The door opened. T-minus 60 seconds. Amy slipped inside. The study lounge was silent, pristine, and guarded by the glow of Julian's custom OS laptop. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her hands were steady. Guided by 2 decades of focusing only on the logic, she inserted the USB drive. T-minus 45 seconds. The Cerberus siphon module began its rapid, silent injection. Amy scanned the room, listening. A cleaning crew was working on the far end of the hall. The clock was ticking. T-minus 30 seconds. Near miss, the primary siphon module encountered a nested firewall Julian had added in the wake of Amy's frame job. A contingency against the very thing Amy was doing. The progress bar stalled at 80%. Amy's mind screamed. Input, unexpected firewall. Output, manual override required. She used the secondary interface on her boot drive to quickly type a 3-line, low-level kernel bypass code. A desperate gamble that could trigger an alert. She heard footsteps coming down the hall. T-minus 15 seconds. The firewall bypass worked. The siphon completed the injection, successfully planting the dormant Cerberus in Julian's system. It also successfully scraped the final chat logs and the frame job code. T-minus 5 seconds. Amy snatched the USB drive and wiped the surface of the laptop of any fingerprints. The footsteps were at the end of the hall. Marcos Petrova, returning early. T-minus 0 seconds. Amy pushed the cart out of the lounge, smoothly closing the door. Marcos passed her in the hallway, his face drawn. He didn't even see her. He only saw the janitor's jacket. Amy nodded curtly and kept walking, the adrenaline now pumping ice through her veins. The core system was compromised, the battle was won, but the war of consequence was about to begin. The climax. The gala and the perfect truth. The ACM Fellowship Gala was a spectacle of wealth and privilege. Amy, disguised as a lighting assistant, was behind the main console, her hand resting on the override sequence for the main projection screen. Julian, radiant in his tuxedo, was surrounded by the trustees. He moved with the unshakable confidence of a man who believed his lies were permanently solidified. The university president, Dr. Hawthorne, announced the recipient. The winner of the ACM Fellowship is Julian Vance. The applause was deafening. Julian strode onto the stage, accepted the plaque, and approached the microphone. He looked directly at the crowd, ready to solidify his narrative of brilliance. "This fellowship," he began, his voice smooth and powerful, "is about more than mere diligence. It's about recognizing that in the complex world of finance and technology, it's about the final delivery, not the raw hours you spend behind a screen. Execute Cerberus. Now." The sound waves of "final delivery" hit the mic. Amy's final trigger. Amy initiated the triple broadcast protocol. She felt a terrifying rush of pure, focused power as she flipped the main projection source from Julian's laptop to her console. The polished Synapse AI logo dissolved on the massive screen behind Julian. Stream 1. The financial treachery. The irrefutable lie. The screen filled with the blockchain-verified, legally stamped dossier. Vance Holdings. Wire transfer. 90,000 USD. Recipient. Zeus. Eastern European Ghost Coding Collective. Memo. Project Titan. Core LLM. Final deliverable. The audience gasped, the sound a ragged tear in the grand silence. The trustees, seeing the financial paper trail, instantly understood the magnitude of the fraud. Julian's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The academic sabotage, the cold-blooded crime. The screen split, showing the full annotated source code of the self-deleting JavaScript Julian used to frame Amy. It included Julian's own internal comments, the timestamps, and the IP log linking the injection directly to his secure admin account. Annotation. This script deletes all traces after execution, ensures the hyper-focused Chen takes the fall. Dr. Elias, Amy's mentor, stood up, his face contorted in a silent scream of vindication and horror. The professors saw the undeniable proof that they had expelled an innocent student based on a digital fabrication. The social malice. The shattering ego. The screen then displayed Julian's private chat log. The words he thought were erased forever, broadcast to every recruiter, professor, and trustee. Julian, private DM. The pathetic loser Amy Chen is done. I framed her perfectly. Now the ACM is mine. She thought she could beat me with math. That hyper-focused little bitch is toxic now. I've liquidated her career. The only way to win is to make the other side zero. The room was utter silence, punctuated by the faint click, click, click of recruiters closing their portfolios and trustees rising from their seats. Julian Vance's control shattered. He lunged backward, knocking over the table holding the ACM plaque. The bronze medallion clattered loudly on the floor, the sound of his entire life breaking. He screamed, a raw, panicked sound, and tried to shield the screen with his body, but the image was already burned into the memory of every person present, irreversibly captured by the dozens of camera phones now flashing in the dark hall. Amy watched from the console. The intense fury that had fueled her for months evaporated, replaced by the profound, clean equilibrium of justice restored. She felt no joy, only the quiet, cold satisfaction of deterministic consequence. Vindication and the new system, the reckoning. Security and federal agents, already alerted by a pre-scheduled anonymized notification tied to the Cerberus Kronos lock, converged on the stage. Julian Vance was escorted out in front of the entire academic and corporate world, the ultimate public demolition of a fabricated identity. The university moved with unprecedented speed to correct its error. Amy was fully exonerated. Her suspension was lifted. The dean delivered a televised, humble apology, citing the institution's grave failure to protect integrity. The ACM Fellowship was immediately and unanimously awarded to Amy Chen. Dr. Elias sought Amy out behind the scenes, his eyes wet with regret. Amy, you used this moment not for spite, but for truth. You exposed the flaw in our system, not just in Julian. You are the future of ethical technology. Amy accepted the ACM Fellowship and the patent rights to the Cassandra Protocol, but she declined the offer to return to Ellsworth. The system is still compromised, she told Dr. Hawthorne, the university president, her voice steady. It favored a charismatic lie over verifiable data. I cannot build my career on unstable ground. Amy used the ACM grant money and the patent income to found Integrity Labs. Her firm was built on the core principles she had learned in her father's repair shop and Julian's betrayal. Systems built on lies will always collapse under the weight of precise, unassailable data. Amy Chen, the quiet girl who was reduced to zero, rebuilt her world into an architecture of consequence, proving that true power lies not in being seen, but in having the power to reveal the unseen truth. Her revenge was not a moment of anger. It was the perfect, elegant output of a flawless equation. Moral lesson. True power lies not in charm, manipulation, or deception, but in precision, integrity, and persistence. The quiet, observant mind that acts with ethical clarity can overcome even the most cunning adversaries. Life rewards patience, intelligence, and moral courage, proving that justice, though sometimes delayed, is inevitable when guided by unwavering principles.